We're officially less than a week away from the looming tax filing deadline of April 15th. But if you have yet to file, you're in good company. 1 in 4 Americans still feel unprepared to file, and 28% don't know when the deadline for filing is this year. Remember, it is the 15th. Now, an estimated 29% of Americans wait until the last minute to do their taxes. That's all according to a study done by IPX 1031. Well, to make sure you're all caught up, let's bring in our next guest, Mark Steber, Jackson Hewitt Chief Tax Information Officer, to discuss the best ways to get prepared. Thank you for joining me this morning. So, obviously, less than a week away. If people have waited to the last minute, what is the main reason they tend to wait right up until this closing few days?
Yeah, I'll say I don't know much about your study, but after 40 years, I can tell you unequivocally it is correct. People wait to the last minute, and for a variety of reasons. They get busy with life. Mostly, they would rather walk through a field of cactus naked than have to do their taxes or speak in public. So, there's the reason they put it off that stems from I'm too busy, to I think I'm going to owe, to a proliferation of social media with bad information that says just wait, it'll be better later, or you may get more money later, or they may move the deadline like they did a couple of years later, none of which say file early, get your money early, protect yourself from scammers and ID thieves, have more time in case there's questions. So the information on the internet and social media leans toward wait too later. It takes really 1 out of 100 to say do it for the right reasons and file early. But you're exactly correct. It's a large number. I put it at 40 or 50 million people, rather than your percentages, just because we know as of about a week ago, about 90 million people have filed according to IRS. Last 5 years, the total's about 165 million. 165 less 90 leaves about 50 million plus or minus the week that's happened since then. So a lot of people wait for a lot of reasons, and it's never good.
So, Mark, you mentioned obviously a lot of painful comparisons there, but so that people can actually at least start to sort of get their head out of the sand and just start working on it, what do they need to ensure that they have done by April 15th, even if they are unprepared? Because some people are worried about sort of fixing or adjusting later or getting audited.
Well, there's a lot of good concerns in that, but I would simply say get a plan and start to act on that plan. As with anything, as your earlier guest said about saving, get the plan, lock it in, and act on it. And fortunately or unfortunately, you don't really have a lot of options. You might when you go to about saving or investing, but you don't on your taxes. You really have about 120 hours left, or you run the risk of filing penalties, payment penalties, interest, and then money to clean all that up. So I would simply say in the 120 or so hours left, get your plan, find last year's materials. That's always a good starter, last year's tax return. I like that as a roadmap. Find this year's materials. You should have it all by now, and if you don't, that's another set of action steps, because if you don't have it by now, it's probably not coming, and you need to track that W-2, 1099, or broker statement down. And then decide on what works for you, whether you farm it out to a tax professional, who all of us have lots of extra hours and staffing right now, or if you want to do it yourself, like the cowboy astronaut nation we are. And there's a lot of options there as well. So just go wisely and go soon and get your plan and act on your plan, and then recognize this year's almost a third over, so it's time to start thinking about next year if you didn't get the happy result you wanted this year in the way of a big refund or some balance due that you didn't know you had coming. Start to look at 2024. It's happening faster than you think.
So, Mark, for people who are wondering if they don't have the right forms, in situations like that, is it better to e-file versus going physically to a location or to an individual broker?
Well, I'll say this, e-filing or electronic filing is a smart practice no matter how you do it. Whether you seek out a tax professional, make sure you e-file. And that's not just doing it on a computer, that's sending it to the IRS over secure transfer. It's faster, it's more accurate, it's safer. If there's an anomaly or an error, you generally get a notice really quickly so you can fix it, as opposed to if you stick it in the mail. Now, whether you do it yourself or you pay a pro, that's usually a personal choice. And I'll simply say it really, for me, dovetails down to how complicated your taxes are. And that's not a high income or a low income or a no income threshold. It's really, did you have things that make your taxes complicated? Do you have dependents? Do you have a complicated family structure with shared custody? Do you have a side hustle or side gig? Did you invest into crypto? All those have enormous consequences on the taxes, not just just getting it wrong and getting an IRS notice, but leaving money on the table that you could have got a bigger deduction by calculating your basis correctly, or getting all of your self-employment deductions, or whatever the option might be. Heck, 1 out of 4 people or 1 out of 5 people don't claim the earned income credit every year, and that's a credit upwards of $6,000 or $7,000. 1 in 5 don't take it. They don't know about it, they forget. So the mistake that you have is not necessarily getting audited, it's leaving off some money, because the IRS is not just going to send you more cash. You leave it off, it stays off. Whether you hire a pro to help, that's kind of a personal choice, but you can't shortcut the process and be watching TikTok or social media and getting your tax advice. That's a recipe for disaster.
And so, Mark, in terms of when people can start expecting some of their tax refunds or finding out if they owe, how soon will that happen, I guess, depending on how complicated their tax return is?
Well, generally, if you're using a professional, it happens right there at the desk. You find out whether you owe or getting a refund. So at our company, it takes about an hour. Now, if you're talking about how fast you get your refund, which good news is refunds are up this year, up about 5%. 3 out of 4 people are still getting refunds. That's about 100 million people, or $300 billion. So there's a lot of refund money going. As to how fast you get that once you file, 9 out of 10 people are getting their refunds in about 21 days or less if they follow 2 rules. 1, they electronically file their tax return and send it to the IRS immediately, not snail mail it. And you also electronically deposit that refund into your bank or your checking or savings account, not get that paper check mailed back through the IRS, which also can take weeks. E-file, e-deposit, 9 out of 10, 21 days. Deviate from that, then it can take weeks or even months. The second requirement is make sure it's accurate. No guessing, no estimating, no ballparking or spitballing when it comes to your information. If it doesn't match, that can also add time and delay.
Indeed, and people, if they are doing snail mail, beware of when it's postmarked. They will be looking for the April 15th deadline there. Appreciate you taking the time to take some of the stress out of all of this. Mark Steber, Jackson Hewitt, Chief Tax Information Officer, thank you so much.
Thank you.